Welcome to The Exchange, where we invite leaders in their field to join us to discuss topics of interest to all of us in our everyday lives. I'm Rob Buckingham, and my co-host on The Exchange is my wife, Christie.
Great to be here today. On today's show, we'll discuss bullying and whether or not technology has opened up new ways for children to be bullied.
To explore this topic, we're thrilled to be joined by Susan McLean, who is a former policewoman and the first Victoria police officer appointed to a position involving cyber safety and young people. Welcome, Susan.
Well, and thank you very much for having me. It's great.
Wonderful to have you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
We're also very excited to be joined by Evelyn Field, who is a psychologist and has written several books on bullying for both the school and the workplace. Thanks for joining us, Evelyn.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great to have you. Now, before we start our discussion today, let's take a look at this.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your main event. In the red corner, we have Vince Victim. And in the blue corner, we have Baba Bully. This isn't going to be much of a contest. Looks like Bully's going for the finishing blow by going to social media and posting something nasty on Vince's wall. How is Bully ever going to be stopped?
This is such a practical topic today. I would imagine many of us have been the subject of bullying
I certainly have been bullied.
over the years. Is bullying, has it always been around? Let's start with you, Evelyn.
It's always been around. It's just that we are becoming more aware of it at school and in the workplace and probably at home as well.
Okay, and Susan, you've seen a lot of this, I would imagine, in the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, as Evelyn said, bullying has been with us forever. But what I specialise in and what I've been dealing with for many, many years is the fact that bullying now has a technology component. So it's not the technology's fault. Technology is the conduit for this inappropriate behaviour to continue.
Yeah. Now, you're referred to as cyber cop.
Yeah,
Tell us the background to
media,
that.
I think the media gave me that that moniker many years
My
ago.
daughter thinks it's very cool, so
Yeah.
I think I'd go with that.
I do. I mean, I actually own the .com name, so I sort of,
Good on you.
thought I'd trade on that in case I needed it. But yeah, I did an article in a newspaper early on in my police career when I was specialising in this, and the headline was something like, cyber cop hits the beat, and it stuck. So that's me.
So why is bullying such an issue?
Well, I think we're really getting sick and tired of having our children, or if you're an employee, come home and just feel absolutely sick to the stomach, have nightmares. Children, of course, might have bedwetting, their work might go down, their social life diminishes. There are obviously physical changes we'll see, the same thing if you're being bullied at work.
What are some of the physical changes, Evelyn?
With people being bullied at work,
Yes.
what I would expect, first of all, and let me say this at the outset, if there is bullying, there's likely to be a change in your brain, and at the end of the day, it's about brain damage. So the links between bullying and brain damage are becoming more and more clear. So it is a physical injury, it's a psychological injury, it's a social injury, it's a cognitive injury. At the end of the day, the child or the adult who's being bullied become a different person. It is a very serious form of injury. And in fact, the DSM-5, which is the Psychiatrist's
Yes.
Bible, has just been released, and for the first time, it actually mentions bullying.
Wow.
In other words, psychiatrists and many other mental health practitioners haven't understood how serious bullying is. So this is the first time, and that's sort of 2 weeks ago.
So this
it's
is
come
only
out.
a very recent
Very
thing
recent.
until...
I got my copy 2 days ago, and I think it came out 2 weeks ago in America.
When did the psychological effects, though, when were they first discovered? When was there a link discovered between bullying and actually a mental health?
I think
correlation.
probably with Dan Olviers, probably 2 decades ago, that we knew that bullying was bad and that children would be affected or adults would be affected. What we're only doing right now, and I'm proud to be saying that I'm the one spearheading it, is looking at the actual injuries and dividing them into physical, psychological, social, etc. And saying, you can't just say, oh, bullying is bad. You've got to say why it's bad.
So what are some of those injuries? How could we recognise some
Well,
of those
for
things?
example, example, in an adult, I would expect a weight gain, sometimes 17 kilos on average, or a weight loss. I would expect gastro problems, more headaches, blood pressure, and some of the more serious things happening as a result, such as cancer, brain bleeds, fibromyalgia, all happening because the person can't cope with this incredible long period of stress and trauma and fear and intimidation.
Yeah, that's absolutely
fascinating,
massive, isn't it?
yeah.
Susan, is this something you've seen firsthand as well in the work that you do?
Absolutely. I took my first report of cyberbullying as a police officer in 1994. So again, it's not new to me.
No, that's 20
20
years ago.
years ago, it is. And it's increased over time. Two reasons for the increase. More people use technology now when we're talking about cyberbullying. And as Evelyn said, we are more aware of it. It's in the media, it's in schools, it's in workplaces, so people talk about it. But certainly those very similar manifestations happen in children. We see that they refuse to go to school, their grades change, they are
And
disengaged.
we're not talking about the normal tummy ache that before sports. Is that something to be aware of?
They'll have that as well. I always say to parents, you know, there's no template of how cyberbullying will manifest itself in your child, but if you notice any subtle changes in your child for the negative, investigate. They might have the latest virus going around. But when I was growing up, my parents didn't have to worry about the fact that I was being cyberbullied, and that might be a cause of why I had stomach aches at 8:30 every morning and why I had a headache that magically went away if I stayed home from school or things like that.
Yeah.
So,
That's
you know,
great.
those things are still happening. Change in friendship groups, wanting to be online all the time when they didn't used to be, or not wanting to be online when they used to be online all the time. So you've got to become an expert in your own children, and you have to be prepared to act. This nonsense of it's just a bit of fun or it's always been with us is well and truly gone.
So do you think a parent actually, because one of our kids said to us, I feel stalked by you checking on my Instagram or my Facebook. You know, is it a parent's duty in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
There is a line between being the Facebook stalker parent
Yes, that's
and the parent. But again, I would still much rather the Facebook stalker parent, because so many parents simply are not parenting. They are too busy being their children's best friend. They won't say no to them.
We've heard that
won't
story so often.
look at what they're doing. You know, a lot of the problems that I see online with young people simply should not happen. Because if children were not in the wrong place doing the wrong thing and unsupervised, problem solved.
Yep.
Now, that's not going to fix the lot, but I think parents really do need to step up to the plate and learn to parent in the 21st century, which is, of course, in the digital space.
Well
So how often, because I check our kids' my eldest Facebook and the Instagrams probably about once a week, and I have a few friends on there that will, you know, send me something if they think it's a bit questionable. What is a stalker versus a responsible adult looking at things?
A stalking parent is someone that is on their child's account almost 24/7, making comments to their friends, making comments on the pictures, trying to engage in conversation with all their children's friends. Parents have a watching brief. They should have a look and see what's there. Be aware, however, that just being their friend on Facebook doesn't show you everything.
Right.
They can get private messages that you are not going to see.
Yes.
But what I always say is if you're there and you have this watching brief, you will tell by the flavour of what you're seeing whether things are going okay or not. And of course, having other people, you know, your brothers and sisters, their aunts and uncles, family, friends, you know, that's all part of what you need to do. But this notion of, oh, it's an invasion of my child's privacy and I shouldn't be there, is just that. It's just ludicrous.
It is
and
ludicrous.
Poor parenting.
Evelyn, let's go back to you for a moment. Can you define bullying for us, please?
Well, I think to me, bullying is about an abuse of power occurring usually over a period of time. So, you know, you can be bullied from your boss if you're at work, from your colleagues, or from your employees. And at school, you can be bullied by a smaller kid. It's just you feel powerless, you feel humiliated, you just don't know what to do.
It's a horrible feeling. I mean, I remember that at school and not wanting to go to school in the mornings and all of that kind of thing. And it really is disempowering, isn't it?
I think what we need to be aware of is that bullying comes in different forms. So there is the physical bullying that boys will, of course, remember, some girls.
Yes.
The verbal bullying, calling people names. The exclusion, that is, I don't want to play with you today, go away, and then the cyberbullying. And as far as I understand, the ordinary bullying is still more than the cyberbullying, if I'm correct.
And
so
statistics are showing us
that's right.
that.
So we have to look at the whole context of the bullying, not just what our kids are doing online. And by the way, somebody well known, whose name I've just forgotten, said, you know, if the rest of the world can look, so can mum and dad.
Yes.
You know, if you buy it, if you pay for it, you've got to supervise it.
Yes.
Bring anything electronic into the family room and just part of your family meetings, part of your family dinners. You need to talk about what you're doing at school, what you're doing with your friends, what you're doing at footy, what you're doing
That's great.
online. It's got to be part of the family
Absolutely.
life.
It's not a standalone.
That's right.
Because children don't have an on and offline world.
Yep.
We do. We're old
We
people.
do.
We go on, we go off.
Yes, it's
Kids
so
don't.
true.
Technology is part of their world.
They wake up to it.
So again, simply having the computers or any device that connects to the internet out of the bedroom is really important. As Evelyn said, check what they're doing, because I had a case recently in another state where a young girl was being groomed online by a predator. She never had technology in her bedroom. It was happening on the couch in front of mum and dad.
Oh, my goodness.
They did get the technology out of the bedroom. They didn't take the next step of see actually what the child is doing.
We'll come back to that in just a moment. I'd like to explore that a little bit further. We'll be back in just a moment on The Exchange. Welcome back to The Exchange. We're having a lively discussion with Susan McLean and Evelyn Field about how technology has opened up new ways of bullying. Evelyn, what are the effective ways of combating bullying these days?
Well, I think we need to have basically a two-pronged approach. One is about having appropriate role models within our community, politics, football, but more importantly, the school has to have a whole school policy, which includes not bullying your staff, because that's higher than the bullying in the classroom. We also need to have policies within organisations for employers. In other words, employers need to say bullying is bad for business, it is bad for productivity, it is bad for people because it destroys human lives, and therefore we as an organisation need to make sure that we have whole organisation policies. So the first thing is to make sure that the system is functioning efficiently at all levels and in all areas. The second thing is we need to empower our children, our teenagers and our employees how to deal with people when they're being mean or nasty or difficult. In other words, I'd call it teaching them how to develop some bully blocking techniques.
Sure. Very quickly, what would they be?
Well, basically, it's not to show your fear or your anger, not to show your vulnerability, not to believe that because you think if you're nice to people, they'll be nice to you. That's not necessarily going to happen. In other words, to be aware of where you are and to say, do I feel safe? Is the feedback giving me that signal that I am safe, or do I need to be careful? Are there piranhas or saltwater crocodiles out there?
Right.
And then I need to adapt my behaviour to the piranhas or the saltwater crocodiles. We need to empower children, and we're not doing it in our schools and we're not doing it in our workplaces.
So we really need to lift our game, don't
and we do. Schools have got a major role to play, especially when we're talking about cyberbullying and bullying amongst students. I'm continually amazed at the amount of schools that ring me for advice, and then when I say, but what does your policy say? How can you be guided about what's acceptable? Oh, we don't have one, or needs a bit of work, or we should have thought of this earlier. They're still being very reactionary. Cyberbullying, regardless of where it happens, is a school issue if it's involving school students.
24/7.
It is 24/7. I do a lot of work with sport, junior sport. I was at a junior sport club on Monday night. Second only to schools for incidences of cyberbullying now is sport clubs, where players are going online and writing abusive comments. There is this, when I talk about cyberbullying, there is this misbelief that what you do online is somehow different. It doesn't really matter. There are no consequences, and it is a lawless society. And
It's like the whole Second Life thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's my online life and my offline
People
life.
behave online in a way that they would never behave in
That
the
is
real
so
world
true.
because they believe it's acceptable, because society has allowed that to happen.
And nobody's holding them accountable.
No one is holding them accountable, and sadly police around Australia are failing in their duty to adequately respond to this. Until people understand that there are consequences for what you do 24/7, online, offline, whatever you want to call
Totally
it,
agree.
we are not going to get anywhere. But education for me is the key, and it must start in schools.
Very well said.
fantastic.
That's what we think. Let's go out on the streets and find out what the people have to say.
Bullying is something that affects many people. Today we're going to find out what lengths people will go to stop their child from being bullied. What would you do if your child was being bullied?
Take action. I'd ring the school, let them know what's been happening, and then I'd also want a close conference with the parents and see why they are bullying each other.
I'd deal with it straight on. I'd try and give them the best advice possible, having had it myself as a primary school kid. And then if it wasn't getting any better, I'd be going up to the school and asking for it to be sorted out straight away.
So you don't want your kid to go ahead and bully the other kid, but obviously I've heard somewhere, and I've dealt with bullies myself in my life, that sometimes it's good to attack not the same way the kid attacks you, but in a way that it's not okay that they bully you, so stand up for yourself.
Well, I suppose firstly I would listen to my children, and I would really seriously take that on board.
I think I'd find it pretty difficult because I was bullied myself as a child, so I think I'd really want him to know that he could talk to me or my husband and really talk to the school and see what could be done about that.
Well, obviously you can't tell them not to worry about it, but I just try and make them keep on studying and not get put off from studies, because studying's obviously the main thing.
Let us know a little bit about what your children have experienced with bullying and what you've seen and noticed.
Well, I think that with the bullying, it's mostly girls that seem to target each other. Because like on Facebook and Instagram, if you go on there, you see girls either posing in either their outfits or bikinis, and they seem to target by saying putting insulting words like, oh, you're fat, you're ugly, you look like a slut. So that's the type of bullying, and because of the media, and I truly, when they portray girls to look a certain way, girls are prone to feel insecure, and that's what causes the start of bullying.
And have you ever had first-hand experience of bullying?
Yeah, I think everyone has, at school. Even if they don't say they have, I think.
Where this comes from is from the home. I teach my children to be kind and compassionate and loving towards others, so I think some of it comes from there.
So if you had a child that was bullying, would you be reprimanding? What would you be doing with your child?
Definitely, but I would be getting to the bottom of it, because there's obviously an underlying issue.
Welcome, Sandra. You were on the streets there. How did you find that?
Look, I found it quite interesting, actually. I mean, a lot of the people who are on the streets have actually experienced bullying themselves when they were younger and were quite passionate about the topic. But I found that a lot of them didn't actually think about the fact if their child was the bully. They always, when they talked about it, would be my child was
being bullied.
Not my child, never my child.
Never my child.
Right,
and obviously the course of action then is to approach the school. And I don't know if that's a good...
What do you guys think about that, approaching the school?
Good luck with that. No, look, they should approach the school, absolutely. If it's school-based, the school must be informed. But in the work that I do in a school somewhere in Australia and often internationally every single day, it's very hit and miss. Schools are obligated to deal with this, have policy, etc., 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 but they're not doing it. I'm dealing with a case at the moment. It's now in the hands of the regional office. It is a litany of hideous bullying, both physical and cyberbullying. It's been going on since last year, and the school has kept telling this family it's not their problem, it happened at night, go away.
That's terrible.
And it's everyone.
What I'd like to say is that, when I see a kid who's being bullied in my office, and I've been doing the work for over 40 years, it's very easy to change a target into a survivor. It's 1 or 2 sessions to help them change their attitude, the way they stand, the way they move, and the way they deal with the bullying. Once they get it permanently. And I really feel that once your child leaves school for the day or for good, there's going to be bullying everywhere else. I think it's up to parents as well as others to teach children how to deal with mean, difficult, nasty people, because the actual skills are very easy to learn.
And it's the real world.
Everyone is
not nice. Do parents actually know what to do?
It's
very how to equip the child?
Very easy to teach them.
What about the lady who said, I would encourage them to go back and stand up to the bully. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think they've got to give them the skills. So if the child has got good body language, good eye contact, they know what to say, and not to exacerbate the situation, but just how to block them, how to be totally neutral. For example, gee, you're fat, to Evelyn. Well, thanks, I like to eat. You know, just very, very neutral.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you're bad at sport. And, you know, a very neutral reply. It is so easy to teach kids that.
Just before we go to the break, one of the ladies that was interviewed there said that it's more girls that would be bullying than boys. Is that an accurate statement?
No.
They just have different techniques for being bullies?
And
Just
cyberbullying is the same. There's girls, there's boys. You know, interestingly, with the social media, people are quick to blame it. It's not the social media at all, it's the person pressing the button. I think we need to get that very clear.
Yeah.
And also, when I'm dealing with 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12-year-olds having issues on Kik Messenger, Instagram and Facebook, simply shouldn't happen because they shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And parents need to start to say no about that because that'll cut a whole lot of the problems out.
So I think the issue really is you can't just say the school's got to do everything. They can't bring up your children for you.
That's exactly
Parents have to take greater responsibility and, as you say, a whole of community approach.
Absolutely. It's a social problem.
Well said. Sandra, thanks for popping in.
No, it's great to be here.
We'll see you next time. You're on The Exchange. We'll be back in just a moment.
That's right.
Oh, advantage.
Welcome back to The Exchange, where our guests, cyber cop Susan McLean and psychologist Evelyn Field, have been sharing their insights into bullying. It's been a wonderful discussion today, hasn't it?
Very productive.
Susan, you mentioned just earlier about parents and the whole area of social media. Should we just ban it?
No.
Okay,
No.
how do we make decisions on what they should do?
Look, I think we need to understand that technology is part and parcel of the world. It's not going anywhere, it's not a fad or phase, and it is children's worlds. And there is nothing wrong with that because used correctly, it's a great tool. It is a fabulous tool. We only ever hear about the negatives. You're not going to get a good news story about Facebook on the front page of the paper. So we've got to be mindful that it's not really these sites that cause problems. They're a conduit. It's the person behind the screen.
What are the sites that would worry you?
Facebook bothers me, not because it's bad. In fact, the safety settings on Facebook are the best there are. It's just that there's more people there, so there's more misuse. Instagram is causing many, many problems.
What age should you let your child go on Instagram?
Well, Instagram has an age restriction of 13. Facebook is 13. Kik Messenger, another one, which we're getting a lot of problems with, is 13. iTunes, to have an iTunes account is 13. To have an account on YouTube, it's 13. So most of the things are 13. And there is plenty of evidence in the media, if you want to go down that path, with examples of kids under 13 getting themselves into trouble.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Very
They
easy,
shouldn't
actually,
be
to get
there
on.
in the first place, and that cuts all of them out. Then you only have to deal with the people that are over 13 that should be there that perhaps are having problems.
I'm going to cut in right there because we're nearly up for time. I want to come to a really good solution. And Evelyn, you mentioned before about 1 or 2 sessions turning a victim into a survivor. I'd like to hear from you both, just a couple of dot points of what people can do to make a difference.
Well, first of all, I think I'm going to follow on from what Susan is saying, as well as your social media, you have to make sure that your children have a decent, adequate social network, that they're out socialising, playing sport, playing basketball, doing everything, and limit the time they spend online. They've got to have a social life.
Yep.
The second thing, you've got to teach your children how to get on with other people, how to be a social being. And that means holding yourself upright, good eye contact, moving your face, showing that you're interested, you're not interested, and learning the appropriate words to say, joining words, connecting words, and also if people are being mean, saying, well, that's their opinion, thinking to yourself, and just blocking it by saying something neutral. So, you know, you're an idiot. Oh, well, thanks for telling me. Or that was yesterday.
I'm so glad about that. In 20 seconds, Susan, what would you
Embrace
say?
technology, it's here to stay, it's awesome, but make sure that you set rules and boundaries for your children, you monitor and manage, and go online with them, see what they're up to and guide them. But certainly if there's an age restriction, say no, it's a very important word, but be involved and keep those open lines of communication happening.
Wonderful advice. And Evelyn, you've written 3 books as well, and we'll put links to those on our website. Thank you both for joining us on The Exchange today.
It's been wonderful having you.
Please go to our website for a fact sheet on today's episode and for more information about this show, The Exchange. We look forward to seeing you next time.
See you then.